All right, so Joseph Cohen from Israel Advocacy Movement is going toe-to-toe with Ana Kasparian from the Young Turks. Let's get into it.
Calling Israel's actions in Gaza a genocide.
Sorry, I just can't. Maybe that wasn't clear. I put out a report critical of B'Tselem's work. I don't value. I found them lying in multiple instances. No, I wasn't clear, so I apologize.
No, that's okay. Thank you for clarifying. Second question for you is the claim that the birth rate in Gaza is double the Israeli kill rate of the Palestinian people. I'm curious where that citation comes from, especially given the fact that international journalists have been barred from entering the Gaza Strip and reporting on what's actually happening on the ground there.
So that's from the Gaza Ministry of Health.
The Gaza Ministry of Health says that double the amount of people who have been killed in Gaza.
They didn't frame it that way. They say around just shy of 30,000 people were killed in 2023. Around 20,000 were killed in 2025, and just shy of 20,000 have been killed now, like in 2026. So they put out what's called the verified death list. I'm sure you've covered the verified list, where they list the IDs so you can validate whether they're legitimate IDs. You can't validate it against the population register because we don't have access to that. But it seems to be in the right sort of ballpark, which is why most people will use those numbers. They also issue births in Gaza, like any government does, and the births are double the deaths. Around 50,000 births in Gaza a year.
Already your numbers are questionable, to say the least. If you can recall, Israel...
I agree they're from Gaza.
Okay, well, Israel signed a ceasefire deal with Hamas in October of last year. And since then, they have killed anywhere between 2,050 to 1,290 Palestinians, not 20,000 Palestinians in 2026. So I don't know. Those numbers seem a little fishy to me, but we can move on. Go ahead, Mario.
Yeah, my point on this one as well, Joseph, is that if Israel, so a lot of people like to make the argument that the high birth rate, or if Israel wants to genocide a population, they'll just kill everybody. But if this is actually the objective, there's a practical way of achieving it. If the goal is to get all Palestinians out of Gaza and to annex Gaza, the solution, if they kill every single Palestinian, they try to get a rate of kill more people at a rate higher than the birth rate in the country, or try to prevent births, they'll get massive pushback around the world. They'll get their approval ratings will collapse more than they have already. So I think the argument that not enough people are dying or a lot of people are being born does not really prove that genocide is not happening. I think it needs a lot more than that. I think what proves genocide is not happening is that not talking about settling Gaza, or not talking about trying to get Palestinians, as many as possible, out of Gaza, not leveling the entirety of the country or the region. These are better indicators.
So, neither of those things, just to be clear, would be genocide. If Israel were to settle Gaza, Jews living somewhere does not equal genocide. Similarly, if there was a population transfer, which has happened in many, many countries, that also wouldn't equal genocide. You could argue if it was against the will of the people there.
That's an excellent point. People love to equate the destruction of infrastructure as a genocide. You can call it a cementicide, you can call it an infrastructure side, but it is not a genocide. Transferring people is not a genocide. The Indians, when Pakistan was created, there were, I believe, 40 million. There were tens of millions, if I'm not mistaken, that were transferred to Pakistan. There are so many stories of people who were transferred from one land to another. This happened all throughout history. It happened much in modern history. All of the neighboring countries with Israel in the Levant, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, these are all countries that weren't countries until either a few years before, I believe a few years before Israel was established, because they were all part of empires prior to that. Islam didn't have countries. This is a new concept. Joseph is so much more well-versed than Anna on this topic. It's going to be beautiful to watch. I'm stoked to keep watching this, because I know he's going to destroy her.
It's ethnic cleansing, but it's not genocide. Words have definitions, in the context of genocide. It has a legal definition. Dola specialis. Yeah, everyone's been over this a million times. We don't have to rehash the genocide.
I hosted a debate. I hosted a debate with two historians that deal with genocide for Zero Hedge a while ago. I think whatever you want to call it, legally, what it's called, what it's labeled, what do genocide scholars call it, for me, the term doesn't matter. It's just what's actually happening on the ground that matters, what the intentions are.
So what would you
I don't want to debate with it.
What would you call the Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, declaring, and I believe this was last week, that the Israelis should do targeted killings of 30 to 40 Palestinians in Gaza nightly? So what would you call it when you hear Ben-Gvir, not on one occasion, not on two, not on three, but on multiple occasions, discussing the need to eradicate the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and settle the land?
Itamar Ben-Gvir is not interested in wiping them out and killing them. Itamar Ben-Gvir is interested in Gaza never being a threat to Israel ever again, and he does want to settle it, which I believe Israel should do as well. It's not about whether we should or we shouldn't. It has to happen. Itamar Ben-Gvir is just correct. You can call him whatever name you want under the sun. He's right. And the Arabs know he's right, and they don't like him because they know that if he had the chance and the opportunity and the power, he would do it and it would be done with. He would get them on boats, ships, planes, and ship them off, and that would be the end of it. This is what most other countries would do. Most Arab countries would have annihilated the Gazans by now. Israel's held to a standard no one else is held to. If Ana Kasparian was an Israeli or had Israeli family that was kidnapped, she'd be ruthless. It's just very funny because the Gazans call for the annihilation of the Jewish people day in and day out, but no one says anything because it's almost expected. It's like, well, they have justification. But when Israelis want the attacks from Gazans to stop, they want them to stop building tunnels and making it their life's mission to eradicate the state. And then someone like Itamar Ben-Gvir who says, we should move them somewhere else, get them the hell out of there. He's seen as this evil monster. This is the reality of the world. Is for most of human history, when you have two warring groups, the victor will usually either annihilate the loser or will expel them, because that's what the other side is looking to do. It's so funny to me how the Gazans are allowed to openly call for the destruction of Israel and its people, and yet when Israelis use similar rhetoric, oh my God, it's very interesting because I'm a realist. I look at humans as they are. You want to eradicate me, I am going to want to eradicate you. It's not a crazy idea. Meaning, the thought of eradicating another group of people, you could say, is a crazy idea. But is it crazy to think that if you want to get rid of me, I will naturally want to get rid of you? It's not crazy. That's human. It's simple logic. It's just logic. Is it brutal? Is it horrible? Do I think it should be? I'm not for it. That's not what I want. Most Israelis just want to live in peace. Most Israelis, would love it if the Gazans stayed in Gaza, live their life, stop building tunnels, stop trying to attack Israelis. They would be left alone. They would be left alone. But that's not what they want. They want Jerusalem. They want Al-Aqsa. They want the land. They want to put the Islamic flag on the land. They want to claim the land. They want to conquer the land. That's what they want. This is what it all boils down to.
I mean, what else would you call it? I mean, the intent has been declared not just by Ben-Gvir, but by Israel Katz, by Bezalel Smotrich, by Benjamin Netanyahu on multiple occasions. They tell us exactly what they intend to do, then they carry it out. And yet we are supposed to believe the gaslighting about how this isn't about wiping out a population of people from a tiny strip of land that the Israelis have been looking to annex and take as their own from the very beginning. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. They say what they're going to do, they do it. So why don't we actually say that we believe the Israelis in carrying out the atrocities that they've been carrying out?
So Israel has no desire to have to annex Gaza. You may find individuals within Israeli politics that would like to see that happen, but Israel has made no statement to that effect. In fact,
That's the problem. That's actually the problem. I agree with Joseph on just about everything regarding this conflict, but this is the issue. The fact that Israel does not want to annex the territory. They're afraid to do it. This is the problem. This is why we're going to be right back at square one again. If Israel does not annex the territory now, the Gazans will either vote in or not vote in a Hamas 2.0, and they will do the exact same shit they were doing on October 6th and prior. And Israel never fucking learns their lesson. It's so annoying to me. The thick-headedness of Jewish people, it is beyond me. God, I love my people, but they're the most stubborn, thick-headed idiots sometimes. I don't know what else, what other sign you need to know. Like, it blows my mind. Blows my fucking mind. I can't stand it. The thick-headed, stubborn bullshit. I can't stand it.
In fact, the opposite is true. In 2005, Israel disengaged from Gaza. They pulled out every single Israeli. And since then, Gaza was used, well, since 2007, as a base to attack Israel from. When Fatah were in control, that wasn't the case. As soon as Hamas took the Strip, it was used to launch hundreds of thousands of rockets at Israel. Now, genocide is not, I'm not trying to argue the legal definitions of genocide. What I'm saying is there's a clear pattern of Israel taking tremendous risks to its own people, to its own soldiers, to minimize civilian casualties. Why would you empty Rafah? Why would you make millions of phone calls? Why would you create maps? Why would you create Al-Mawasi? And I'm not pretending that Al-Mawasi is a summer camp. It's horrible. If you go on Google Maps and Google Earth and you look, it's just tense as far as the eye can see. And as we move into winter, I imagine the conditions there are going to get even worse. And half the population is under 18. And there are many children, while Hamas may recruit minors, even if they're recruited by Hamas, a child is still innocent and their childhood has been robbed. And the majority of children living in Gaza aren't Hamas, and they are suffering because of the war. But Israel would not have created these places like Al-Mawasi, where, despite Anna's claims, Israel takes very minimal actions there and only acts when there is a known threat. Now, I'm not going to defend Ben Gvir's statements because I don't support Ben Gvir. You asked me to support Netanyahu. There's many things Netanyahu does I support. There's many things he does I don't support. Ben Gvir is not a politician that I get behind. He said things I found reprehensible. Before he came into office, he said things that I found reprehensible. I'm not a Ben Gvir fan, but I do believe that even Ben Gvir is not advocating for genocide and the total eradication of the Palestinian people, as you guys were trying to claim. And I'd love to see a quote to that effect.
I just want to mention one statistic, and I'll go to you, Anna. One statistic, you said Israelis don't want to annex Gaza. According to multiple polls over 2025, from Times of Israel to Tika, Channel 14, 39 to 51% of Jewish Israelis would like to annex Gaza or settle Gaza in some form, depending on which poll. So it's between 40 and 50%. That's a pretty big number. And in terms of Ben Gvir, I'll just add one more thing. 33% of Israelis, of Jewish Israelis, have a favorable view of Ben Gvir versus 64% that have an unfavorable view.
He looks to get no more than 4 maximum. If he was by the highest polls, it would be 14 seats, which is
that's in the poll based on exactly best because they vote for other people. They prefer people to Ben Gvir. But I think talking about 1 in 3 Israelis having a favorable view of him, of someone like this that wants crocodiles around a prison, that's building gallows to hang Palestinians as part of the death sentence.
So I think he's crude. Don't get me wrong. Wearing a little hangman's noose is not a very traditionally Jewish thing to do. But
he's a war criminal.
He's talking about terrorists, and he's talking about crocodiles around prisons. It sounds crazy. It sounds like something out of a supervillain movie, but this is where
Your statement,
terrorists are housed.
and I'll give you the statement.
Yeah.
Your statement, so Khan used asked him for.
I would see. I would. I know Anna would love and run with it. I know she would run with it and have a blast. But I am all for the gallows. All for it. Hang those motherfuckers. Let Israelis watch it. As far as I'm concerned, the Arabs want to play their medieval sick games. Jews have to learn how to play that game. Like to some extent, I definitely don't believe in stooping to their level, and I don't think Jews ever will. But hanging these sick terrorists that have committed October 7th, hell yeah, what are we even talking about? The crocodile thing, first of all, I wouldn't care. I'm all for it too, as far as I'm concerned. But it's not necessary. No, it's not necessary. But the fact that we need to treat them humanely, absolutely not. You think El Salvador became the safest country in the Western Hemisphere because Bukele was treating Barrio 18 and MS-13 like normal citizens? He treats them like crap because that's what they are. He treats them like animals because that's exactly what they are. And when I say and animals are much more lovely than these disgusting creatures. Animals are completely instinctual. Animals do things out of instinct. These people have much higher IQs than the average animal. Not very high IQs, but higher than the average animal. And they chose what they did, and they deserve everything that comes to them.
Clarification, Ben Gvir. They said to him, your statement about 40 to 50 killed in Gaza every day created a huge uproar around the world. So Ben Gvir said the Israelis should get 40 to 50 people every single day and execute them in Gaza and kill them in Gaza. He replies, excellent, excellent. I prefer that they cry and that a Jewish mother doesn't cry over her soldier son.
Yep. Yeah, in the same discussion, while arguing for expanded killings of civilians in Gaza, Ben Gvir also said that Palestinians are not worthy of life and that they're not even people.
There's so many reactions to this. The Palestinians don't even value their own lives. Suicide bombings, Hamas openly saying that it helps their cause when Palestinians die. They believe in martyrdom. They believe in the idea of being mujahideen. That's their whole MO. There's no bigger pride than dying for Islam and killing Jews to do so. Killing Jews, killing Christians. There's nothing more prideful in doing in the world than that. Even killing other Muslims they don't agree with, like ISIS and Al Qaeda and Al Shabaab and Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. They'll find a reason to kill other Muslims because they don't believe in the true Islam, quote unquote. And yet, it's so funny how they don't value their own lives, but the Jews are supposed to value their lives. They're willing to trade thousands of terrorists for one or 10 Israeli Jews, but yet they go, the Israelis don't value Arab Muslim lives. They don't value their own lives. And yes, Jewish lives to Jews are more important than their enemies' lives. That's human nature. Are my future kids equal in terms of importance to me than some stranger's kids? Of course not. Do I wish well to some other random person's kid? Oh, yeah, I wish them well. I hope they have long lives and they're healthy, wealthy, and they prosper. But if I have to choose between the well-being of someone else's kid and my kid, it's a non-starter. What are we talking about? And then you'll have, I think Joseph even said like, yeah, the Israeli children and the Gazan children are equal. No, they're not. It's not that Israeli children are inherently better than Gazan children. Children are children. But my family comes first. It's very simple. My family comes before someone else's family. Period. It's an inarguable statement. Anyone who doesn't agree with that to me is a moron. You find if God forbid you had a son and there was another person's son and they were both hanging off the edge of a cliff, you would say, oh, well, I can't save my son over the other one's son. They're just as important. If you could only save one of those boys, either your boy or someone else's, even if it's someone you know, you're going to save their son over yours? Yeah, it's a horrible dilemma to be in, but you're going to let your son die to save someone else's kid? Like, what are we talking about? This is the same idea. This is the perfect analogy to explain this. Especially when my enemy is training their sons to kill my family. What do we like? What the fuck are we talking about here?
Which is genocidal rhetoric. The other thing that I'll just note is when you implement a 3-month blockade of any and all humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip, obviously there's genocidal intent there. That doesn't just include food, water, it includes medical supplies, obviously incredibly.
No, it has nothing to do with genocidal intent. It had to do with pressuring the Gazans to cooperate so the war could end. Israel was trying to put pressure on Hamas through its civilian population by giving them fewer resources. They didn't do that for very long. They gave tons of aid, but they were trying desperately with as few deaths as possible to get them to give the hostages back and to disarm. This is a method of warfare. They're putting pressure on their enemy population so that the terrorist group says, we cannot sustain this anymore. We agree to the terms. We don't want this anymore. This is too difficult for us to bear. We lose, you win. We're done. That's all it would have taken. But they want to continue to do what they want to do and cry and complain that Israel's mistreating them. You shouldn't have committed October 7th. You should have thought of that before you committed October 7th. You shouldn't have You shouldn't have invaded a nuclear power, a country far more powerful than you. And then you're crying and complaining that you're in dire straits. This is what you get. You should have thought of that beforehand.
Important medications to keep people alive, anesthesia as children are undergoing amputations for the endless airstrikes. And just quickly going back to the conversation about literal homemade kites that do not have any weapons on them whatsoever, we are comparing kites to what the United States has armed the Israeli military with, including 2,000-pound bombs that the Israelis felt the need to drop on residential homes all throughout the Gaza Strip, thus leveling the entirety of the Gaza Strip. The very first sign that the Israeli government, with the help of its military, intended to carry out these types of atrocities was when they forced evacuations of Palestinians in the north to the south. And then as Palestinians made their way to the south, the Israelis bombed the south, killing the refugees as they fled. In fact, that's precisely the reason why Hind Rajab's family, who was from the north, had evacuated to the south. And then when they saw that the Israelis are bombing Palestinians in the south, they went back to the north. Israel goes back to bombing the north. At that point, Hind Rajab, along with her relatives, get in a car to try to flee the north back to the south. I mean, this went on and on. And during that moment, as they were fleeing, the IDF decides to carry out an attack on their vehicle, killing, 5 of her relatives. At that point, her cousin was alive. But as the cousin was on the phone with the Palestinian Red Crescent begging for help, you could literally hear IDF forces carrying out shelling of the vehicle, killing the cousin. And then, as we all know later, 3 hours later, after the IDF was made very clear that there was a little 6-year-old girl trapped in that vehicle, they decided to approve an emergency vehicle to approach to save Hind Rajab. As it got closer, they killed the emergency workers, 2 of them, and then they killed Hind Rajab. This is the behavior that we have seen again and again by the IDF in the Gaza Strip, and it has been replicated in other parts of the Middle East, including southern Lebanon. And so when you have Israel Katz declare out loud, overtly, that we are implementing the Gaza strategy, the Gaza model in southern Lebanon, and then you see the IDF literally wipe out 24 villages in southern Lebanon, including Christian villages, that tells you everything you need to know about the intent of the Israelis here, in my opinion.
It basically comes down to numbers, Anna, because the numbers don't lie. The numbers do not lie.
I agree.
And there's a population of 2 million in Gaza. There's a population of 2 million, or there was, before the war. And despite Gaza being one of the most densely populated places in the region. Despite it being a sealed cage, Sisi locked the border. I don't know if you've ever seen the Egyptian border, but it's rows and rows and rows of fence with wire. And Sisi on October the 8th refused to let one Palestinian cross the border. Now, many did, because they paid a $10,000 bribe or more to escape a war zone. So Israel was forced to fight on those terms. We had no choice but to go to war with Hamas. They launched the war on October the 7th. I can see you smirking, but I think we would both oppose to Hamas's actions on October the 7th. Is that fair? We're both against their atrocities. That was an act of a gross act of human rights abuse, violation, war crimes, whatever, genocidal intention. Would you agree with that? Just to make sure we're on the same page there.
I would say, because this is a typical trick of Israel's proponents to immediately go to, do you condemn Hamas? But here's the thing:
I'm just October the 7th.
Let me ask you a question. You, of course, have no problem condemning what Hamas did in targeting civilians on October 7th, but you can't condemn the targeting of civilians on one side while defending the targeting of civilians by the Israeli forces on the other side. Because
so I'll be really clear. I'll be really clear.
So I want to know, do you condemn
soldier, so I'm trying to answer, any Israeli soldier that has intentionally killed civilians, I condemn. Now, tragically, in war, civilians die. That's why wars are horrible. You can't fight an enemy, an army, a terrorist group without there, and I hate the term, being collateral damage. But you cannot find a war in history where that hasn't happened. Now, Israel has a very strict rules of engagement. You can't simply shoot to kill. In most instances, you need to get clearance. If you're doing a drone strike, there needs to be clearance. And so Israel developed strategies like knocks on the roof. So if Israel is going to hit a building, they will do their utmost to ensure civilians aren't there. They send text messages. You've seen them on the phone to Palestinians, and Palestinians begging them not to hit the building in this war. They will then send text messages. They will drop flyers. They will create maps and warn the enemy of a pending incursion, a pending military action, which no military does, because you lose your competitive advantage. You lose your surprise element of any attack. If you tell Hamas that we're coming in 3 days' time, Hamas knows you're coming in 3 days' time and can either ambush or flee. So from a military perspective, it's a terrible strategy, but Israel does it to minimize civilian casualties. You mentioned, sorry, you're going to say something.
No, I was just going to respond to that by asking, is that how you describe double tap strikes on hospitals after first responders show up? Is that the kind of
I'll add one more to this one, Joseph. I'll add one more to it, Joseph. And as you know, my stats, so it's like 2-on-1. So I apologize for that. But
I'm used to it. With Jews, it's much more than 2-on-1, unfortunately.
I wouldn't say with Jews, but just when it comes to Gaza, if we're talking about Turkey, etc., I'd be a lot more balanced. Another example is the statements by Katz just about a week ago, saying that he's proud, he's happy that the homes are being destroyed in Lebanon. The homes will remain destroyed. Rubble should remain there as a message to everyone else not to mess with Israel. These don't seem the intentions of a military that has very clear rules of engagement.
So they do have very clear rules of engagement, which is why the civilian death toll in Lebanon is relatively low comparatively to the civilian population.
Why level the homes? Why intentionally level all the homes? Not Hezbollah infrastructure, all the homes.
Any building that has strategic advantage to Hezbollah will be targeted, has been targeted. If it's been used to attack, if it's been used to provide cover, if it conceals a tunnel, they will be targeted. Now, I would much rather say, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Israel doesn't destroy buildings. You can go on Google Maps.
11,
you can look at southern Gaza.
11,000 in Lebanon.
70%, and in Gaza, 70 to 80% of the buildings have been damaged or destroyed. There's no argument from it. My argument isn't that. My argument is I would rather see 70 to 80% of the population live, which they do. 70,000 people have been killed, well, 73,000, according to Hamas, have been killed in Gaza. That includes all the militants. That includes natural deaths, which was around 8,000 a year prior to 2023. And if anything, natural deaths would have increased because things like medical supplies are not as available as they were before the war. Hospitals aren't as operational. Basic sanitary things like water. Israel provides a huge amount of the water to Gaza, something, by the way, a nation that wanted to genocide a population wouldn't do. You wouldn't provide them with water. But
they've controlled the water flow into Gaza. They've controlled it since the beginning.
Of course, Israel controls the flow that comes from Israel into Gaza. But why would... Do you think the British were supplying the Nazis with water in World War II? Do you think they provided them with 2 billion kilograms of aid?
The Palestinians in Gaza prior to October 7th. They would carry out a policy of mowing the lawn, essentially going in and just slaughtering Palestinians here and there just to show them, who's boss. I mean,
one of the things I struggle with you, Anna,
has been so evident. And look, you have an unenviable role of defending the barbarism that we're talking about right now. You don't have to. You've chosen to do
you ever differentiate between Palestinians and Hamas? Because you asked me about civilians.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, because you say things like mowing the law. And
for instance, I would say classified IDF data that analyzed internal and classified Israeli military intelligence databases found that named Hamas combatants, accounted for about 17% of the total recorded fatalities in Gaza. Just 17% of the people that they killed, the IDF was able to name as combatants. The rest, civilians. Other studies into the number of people killed in Gaza show that 60%, upward of 60%, women and children. And so
60% of women and children.
60% women and children, yes.
So what you consider, this comes back to what you consider to be a child. So for instance, I mentioned the report I did on B'Tselem. You had people like Bani Odem, Bani Mata, big bearded 17-year-olds in the Shahada posters with M4s, with big Kalashnikov rifles, and they're considered children. Who do you consider? Just because somebody is 17 years old, which, by the way, many Western armies recruit 17-year-olds for frontline roles. Just because someone is under 18, it does not mean they are innocent. Just because someone is a woman, it might shock you to know that Hamas actually also use women. As feminist as they are, they use women. So just because someone is a woman and just because someone is under 18, it does not mean they were complicit in the war.
Right. There's always a convenient excuse about how they're allegedly Hamas.
The reality is Anna's getting smoked and she's trying to figure any way. She's just disregarding everything he's saying as nonsense. There are videos of far below 17 years old, 13, 14-year-old boys with RPGs running around Gaza. Hamas does not wear uniforms when they fight. They recruit child soldiers as young as 12, probably, to fight. They do this in Judea and Samaria as well. They do this all over the Middle East. They have child soldiers in Africa. They have child soldiers in Latin gangs. They have child soldiers all over the world. They have child soldiers in Vietnam. They do these things all the time. And the problem is Israel sits here and justifies and justifies and justifies and tries to explain and explain and explain. Like, Israel's far more humane than their enemies. Far more humane. Anna's voice needs to stop. Like, she has a big platform with Spank Flieger. Stupid. But he's mopping the floor with her. She really doesn't have poignant arguments. She can't really counter his arguments very well at all. But she's going to go after this episode. She's going to disregard everything he said, even though everything he said is true. And she's going to have this cognitive dissonance because she can't do a 180. Her fans would have heart attacks. She can't do it. There was Lucas Gage, who is one of the most well-known anti-Semites. He's now pro-Israel. Because he's intelligent enough to say, you know what, I was wrong. I heard enough counter arguments that destroy my points, and I have no choice. I had to come to the other side. And I don't think Anna will do that. I think it's just an ego thing for her. She's going to just refuse to acknowledge anything he's saying is true, although everything he's saying is true.
Hamas militants, or if they're not Hamas militants, Hamas was using them as human shields. Look, when the IDF's own internal classified analysis of those they killed in Gaza indicates that they are only able to name 17% of them as Hamas combatants, that tells you everything you need to know about what the civilian kill ratio really looks like in Gaza. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm basing this off of the IDF's own internal data and their own analysis.
The IDF have stated that they've killed around 30 to 35,000 terrorists, not 17%, 30 to 30. You literally, Netanyahu's on record saying this.
Of course, Netanyahu's on record saying all sorts of things that are not true. But this is based on, again, the IDF's internal data and classified analysis of
but the IDF has never said they've killed 7. That you misunderstand the statistic that you're quoting. What that quote says. Okay, you don't? Okay, what's it saying? Is it saying that is Israel saying they've only killed 17% of the deaths are civilian? Terrorists. Is that what you think it's saying? I just want to be really clear. Is that what you're saying?
Of the 73,000 individuals that have been slaughtered in Gaza, the IDF was only able to name 17% of them as Hamas combatants. And if you guys want to know more details about that, please go ahead and read the original report. The original report, which was in 972 magazine. Please read it for yourselves.
Yuval Abraham released it. Yep. So what I was going to say is, when Israel strikes, let's say you have a terror cell and they're about to launch a rocket, and they know that there's 5 terrorists there that are firing the rocket, and they hit that strike. There is no way of confirming the identities of those people in that moment. You can't go in and take a DNA swab, take it back to the lab, match it up to your DNA database of every Hamas member. Of course not. What they're saying is, when there's a Shahada poster released, the kind of poster we're mentioning, or when they have identification of a high-profile target, etc., these are the ones that have been named there. They are by no way, in any stretch, saying these are the only terrorists they've killed. It's an absurdity. In no war will you ever be able to find any military that's able to say definitively, here are the 100% combatant names of the people we killed in Afghanistan. I push it back to you, Anna. Name me any military campaign where you've been able to name the people of the opposing army that you have killed. Name any conflict where that's happened. It's an absurdity.
The kill ratio in Gaza is unusual and unprecedented in regard to the 5-to-1 civilian to combatant kill ratio.
How did you get the 5-to-1? So let's just from the own data you're basing the data. Listen, you're basing this on Hamas. I'm
basing this off of the IDF's own data. And by the way, I mean, when you see the images, the aerial videos of the Gaza Strip, and you see the entire Gaza Strip flattened, are you really going to try to make the argument that the civilian kill ratio in Gaza is something that the IDF should write home about as if it's something to be proud of?
Okay, perfect. So let's just quickly home in that 2 seconds. In Rafah, there were over 1 million Palestinians in Rafah before we went in. Yes, do you agree with that? It was where everything. Okay, that was the fact. Many that were displaced from the north moved south to Rafah. They thought it was the safer place. They went south. America then put huge pressure on Israel not to go in to Rafah. There was the all eyes on Rafah campaign. I'm sure you remember it. Israel eventually did empty Rafah, and thankfully they did, because that's where we eliminated Richa Sinwar. But there were over 1 million people there. Rafah today, go on Google Maps, have a look. It's not there. It's been razed to the ground, and there's no argument. I'm not proud of this. I'm not happy about this. This is a horrible reality of war. What I am relieved to see is the 1 million people that were in those buildings are not in those buildings. Tragically, they're now in tents in Al-Mawasi, but they're breathing, and thank God they're breathing, because we don't want to see a genocide. We don't want to see 2 million dead Palestinians, 2 million dead Gazans. If we did, we'd do it in an afternoon, but we don't. And we risk our own children to minimize those civilian casualties. Why are the troops on the ground in 2 minutes? Why are the troops on the ground in Gaza? We don't need troops in Gaza. No, we don't need troops in Gaza. We can control it from the air. We can just carpet bomb. Every soldier there is a potential dead Israeli, because they are being attacked on a daily basis.
Anna refuses to concede any points. It doesn't matter how good the point is. She absolutely got destroyed in this debate. It's not even close. You'll have some of her crazy raving fans that are going to think that she won this. You have to be out of your mind to think that she had better talking points and was more correct on her side of things. We have the truth. Period. End of story. The Israeli side has the truth. It isn't perfect. It's made mistakes. Israel's made mistakes. The Jewish people have made mistakes. The government's made mistakes. Plenty. But the accusations that Israel gets versus what actually has happened since October 7th, 2023, complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. But if Israel doesn't annex Gaza and Judea and Samaria, they're going to have to sit here and do all this explaining all over again because they're going to be put in the same position. Gaza is going to get rebuilt. During the rebuilding, they're going to keep attacking and attacking and attacking and planning more attacks, and eventually, God forbid, another October 7th. So hopefully the Israeli leadership will pull their heads out of their asses because they have their heads so far up their asses, a lot of them. I was sitting here crying about Ben Gvir all the time when Ben Gvir actually knows what he's doing. Like, that's the crazy part. He's getting all the smoke when he actually understands his enemy. He gets this. He gets it. He just gets it. We have a brand new listing in the heart of Miami, minutes from the airport, minutes from all of the shopping and entertainment you need. It is a listing for lease, $8,000 a month. The address, as you can see here, is 1701 Northwest 19th. Single family home, 7 beds, 3 baths, just under 3,000 square feet. You can use it as office space, residential space. Cats and dogs are, of course, okay. No HOA. It is co-listed with my buddy Yosef Madar and I. And if you have any additional info, you can follow me at Rafi the Realtor. Send me a DM. If you happen to already have my phone number, you can shoot me a call, text message. All my contact info is on Instagram. If you are looking to buy, sell, rent, or invest in South Florida, be sure to get in contact with me. And that wraps up today's video. You can support the channel by going to the Buy Me a Coffee link in the pinned comment or description. In the description, there is also a Zelle option. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and for your continued support. Until next time, peace.